Hello, my name is Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm talking about nothing is unlovable. I would say fundamentally, if you look at what lovable means, it means it is able to be loved, it is able to be accepted, embraced. So when I'm talking about nothing is unlovable, and on a flip side, you could phrase it as there can be an unconditional love for everything. I'm not talking about it being passionate. I'm not talking about a love that's based on some attachment. I'm not, talking about anything like that. When I'm saying nothing is unlovable, I'm simply saying everything can be seen, deeply seen, and then there could be space for it to be as it is. You're not rejecting, you're not denying, you're not in any way excluding. You're giving a space for them to be and be seen and allowed to be as they are. And this is a difficult thing when it's in a concept form for a ego, conditioned mindset from the ego standpoint to grasp, because it looks upon the world and sees so many things that it has a problem with, and it's rejected and denied. And the worst of it is maybe even hated, and it's like, well, how could that be loved? How could that be loved? And you got to understand that in non-duality, in Advaita, it means there's not two. There's no other. There's only Brahman, only self. And it makes as much sense to pick a part of that and say, I love that part and that part I don't like. That makes as much sense as having a coin saying, I love heads but I hate tails. Tails are unlovable. Heads are lovable. It's one coin. You either accept the coin or you don't. But picking parts of it, saying this part is lovable, this part is not lovable, makes no sense. It's the same thing. It's just form. And with Brahman, with self being the sole existence, all form, the various forms, are all Brahman. It's just self. And so when I say nothing is unlovable, I'm saying all forms can be seen and allowed to be as they are. There is space for them too. They're not being rejected or denied. And so there can be this seeing. And I point out the seeing because I can't remember what author said it, but they said to be loved is to be seen, or something to that effect. And it stuck with me because I see, or sensed, or it resonated. There was a truth in there that love does require a seeing. You have to see what it is. And in that seeing of it, that deeply seeing it, perhaps it's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Avatar, but I liked their acknowledgments when they meet of the I see you. And again, this is all kind of the same line. The seeing them, the deeply seeing them is like one of the minimum requirements, I would say, for there to be love. The second one, of course, would be allowing them to be, having space for them to be. I think it was Eckhart Tolle in one of his talks had talked about, I think he was with Ram Dass at the time. It was a talk that the two of them had. And Eckhart Tolle had talked about, from his side, that the deep love of all is this having space for it to be. And I thought that was rather a good way of putting it too. So but I'm finding there's several pieces that form this. There's the deep seeing, but there's also the giving it space and allowing it to be. And that is, I would say, the basis, or at least starting point, to having a love of all, and knowing that there's only the self. There's only Brahman. And so regardless of the form, it's still Brahman. It's still self. And so you allow it to be. You see it and allow it to be. And the form could be Osama bin Laden. The form could be Hitler. It could be, I don't know, pick a dictator, pick a politician, pick whatever you want. But whatever you feel is unlovable, cannot be loved, that is your own limit you put on not only realizing self, but in loving self. Because there is no other. There's just self. And so at some point, you've got to be able to come to terms with all form. All the various forms. That too is divinity, so to speak. That too is the divine playing that character. Regardless of how messed up or cruel the character might be. You also got to understand that is coming from deep ignorance. Only in a deep ignorance does that cruelty arise. How can you really hate others because of their ignorance? I mean, there's a change in mindset. I mean, if you have a child, slapping you on the cheek, even if it was hard, if they had enough mass and muscle behind them where their hits were actually hurting, you still would never really hold it against the child. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't realize really that they're hurting you. And so although we can be very forgiving to a child, for one that really does not know what they're doing, they don't realize the harm they're doing, and we can understand that they don't know what they do, so you can't really hate them. It's not they just don't know yet, and so you do what you can to maybe bring a understanding to them. And just like a child, you would show them love. You would try to be loving and point out things so that they might know. Hating them, pushing them away, calling them bad and casting them out does not resolve the situation in any way. And so likewise, why can't we see even the adult forms in the same way? They don't realize how ignorant they are. They don't realize how deep they are in ignorance, that they think this is okay. I mean, it could be in their upbringing, could have been some kind of experience in their lifetime, but something has seriously impeded the understanding that, this is not something you should do, especially when there's only the self. And so, regardless of, like I said, the form, they know not what they really did. And it's just another expression of divinity. It's just Brahman self playing the role. Why can't we create space for them to be? They already are. Just create space for them to be and see them and allow them to be. And in that way, you might even take the step further and have kind of an embrace of that being. And there might even be a stronger feeling of love, because they really need it. And so these are potentially different ways of seeing, but I think they are more in line with what happens after realization, enlightenment, awakening. Pick your term, doesn't really matter. But after the illusion of me shatters, after the illusion of separation shatters, and there is no other, there's just self, there's just Brahman, there's nothing left to hate. There is nothing unlovable. And I guess to the degree that we hold on to our hate and our idea that something is unlovable, to the degree that there's that, if anything, that shows how far away we are from realizing who and what we are and the nature of reality. Because in the end, that too is lovable. We just don't want to see it. But if you got any questions, comments, please post below. But until next time, thank you much.